Ladies and gentlemen, hello and bonjour. I am so pleased to be back and honored to have a really great friend that, and we've crossed paths, Little League, middle school, high school, junior college even, and San Diego State, where he got his degree in kinesiology and nutrition as well. And for the longest time, he's been a fitness coach. He's coming out with a book within the next couple of weeks, and I'm so eager and pleased to get in with him and pick his brain a little bit about it all, and to introduce this fine young gentleman and all the work he's put forth, over 20 years being a fitness coach, wellness coach, shadow work coach, if you will, and so much more, nutrition and everything is implemented. So Odysseus Andrianos, my brother, how you doing?
Thank you so much, man. And just to give you guys a little bit more of my background, I was born and raised out in here in the Bay Area. My father worked in Hollywood growing up, so I was always exposed to world-class filmmakers. When I was a little boy, my father was George Lucas's sound mixer, so I was really blessed to be around a lot of world-class coaches, filmmakers, entrepreneurs from a very, very young age. And so that was a huge inspiration for me to get to where I'm at today. And as Derek mentioned, I got my degree in kinesiology from San Diego State. We had a lot of good times down there in San Diego, brother. And that actually led me into fitness and getting into fitness and nutrition. I opened my own gym, ran that gym for 11 years. Eventually I opened a second gym with a $130 million a year corporation, who I still work with them today. And I've helped people all over the world lose thousands of pounds and get in the best shape of their lives. Now, with that said, I began to realize that the underlying issue is that people weren't really struggling with diet and exercise. They were really struggling with their mental and emotional health. And so when I got to the root of that, I realized it was emotions. And that's what led me to writing my book, Shadow Awakening. And I also have a video course called Shadow Awakening, The Dawn of Human Potential, because that's where I realized we are at in humanity, in society, is we are at the dawn of human potential. And everything that's happening in the world right now is neither bad nor good. We're just really beginning to operate more from a quantum level of consciousness, which I go very deeply into in my book. And specifically, when I say quantum, we're going to open up to far greater capacities and possibilities. Many people are stuck in this linear model of consciousness, and that's what keeps them stuck. So the essence of this and what we're talking about today is providing people the tools to actually heal themselves emotionally. When I say heal yourself emotionally, it's really about working with your nervous system. And that's why I love talking about this stuff, because literally the essence of my teaching is teaching you how to become your own healer, which the medical industry, pharmaceutical companies, doctors, our education system, they are not teaching this. So my whole goal is to be a pioneer. And when I say pioneer, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, of all the great coaches and healers and wise men and women who came before me, and sharing that wisdom and creating a package and a system that can support people through that process. So thank you, Derek, for having me here today. And I know you got a few questions for me. Let's dive in.
I got a few, man. Yeah. Yeah. And anyone on this path and that's trying to put out conscious content or, be any kind of life coach, he really inspired me to aspire to do something similar, brother. So yeah, so much love and respect to you for all that good stuff. And I got to admit, you've made me lose a couple pounds as well. And back on the track of just feeling so good about myself and, moving a lot of stagnant energy that I've built up over the past couple of years through a lot of heartbreak and yada, yada. And I've just realized man, it's a lot of simple things and the way that you can break it down and, teach people. And like you said, and here's the thing, there's a lot of gurus and coaches and this and that. They're not always leading people to that self-empowered state of being one's own healer. And so that's why I definitely love the angle and approach you've taken with all this. And I've seen the testimonies of your clients. I mean, they're incredible results, brother. So yeah.
Thank you.
And moving on to, it's been great that you're having this book as reference for anyone and everyone, especially your clients and all that stuff. And I know that was one of your intentions for getting that book out, but what were your other drives and passions and motivations to, get to writing on all this?
Well, I'd love to touch on the fact that you mentioned the word guru. And the word guru is one who dispels darkness with light. Let me say that again. A guru is one who dispels darkness with light. Now, I think a big issue is people are seeking someone else to do that for them. I teach you how to do that for yourself. And so the reason why I got into this is the realization of the discrepancy within the marketplace is that so many people are relying on therapy and drugs and going to doctors. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to call that out. But if it's not working and you keep doing it, that's actually insanity, doing the same thing over and over again without getting a different result. So the essence of all this really comes back to you learning to become your own guru, learning how to dispel your darkness with your own light. And the more people we get to do that, the more we actually heal the collective shadow of humanity. And just to specifically talk about what shadow work is it's making the darkness conscious. It's our repressed, suppressed, or denied emotions. When I say repressed, suppressed, or denied emotions, an example is like you repress your anger, your guilt, your shame for years, and then it's actually running your life unconsciously. So it's only when you actually acknowledge that emotional pain, you begin to work with it, that actually sets you free from the shackles of your past. And this can be the most greatest healing experience of anybody's life. And that's what I'm talking about, you becoming your own guru, because you finally face your emotional pain. And like I said, set yourself free so you can live the life that you've always deserved.
Oh yeah, man. I like that. Well, we'll put on that. And yeah, those good old shoulders that we're standing on of those wonderful giants that came before us, and whether they're still living today or not. Curious as to like, who are the philosophers, even coaches or researchers, anyone, mystics like Manly P. Hall or Joe Dispenza, Carl Jung, who were kind of like your top 3 people that you learned a great deal of? And
Well, I love that you mentioned Carl Jung. And like the essence, like the more I got into studying like Jungian psychology, and like they say that he was the forefather of bringing shadow work out into the open. But the more you get into Jungian psychology, you realize the essence of it really comes from Taoist philosophy, the yin and the yang nature, and Lao Tzu, like the Tao Te Ching, and that's the way of virtue. And so like literally like in the last month, I've been listening to the Tao Te Ching, a recording by Wayne Dyer. I've listened to it like 10 times last month because it's just such deep wisdom. It's so powerful. Mm-hmm. And so like Lao Tzu.
Yeah, you shared some with me. That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. His little chill beat, there's hip hop beats that go along with the recording. But other people that have really helped me out is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, he is a straight legend in terms of his way of breaking down a lot of these ancient teachings. And Alan Watts is a big fan of mine. And like once I started listening to Alan Watts, I just kind of like, oh my God, like he wrote 26 books on Zen for Westerners. Like I really feel like the essence of all these teaching is we're reviving all this ancient Taoist philosophy, Buddhist philosophy. A lot of people in the West, they're completely asleep, like literally asleep. And that's where your shadow's running your life. And so by reviving this ancient wisdom, we're able to revive our potential as humans. And let me think of a couple other people who I've studied that have really helped me out. I've got all my books around me.
Yeah, you got a lot of books. I've seen them over the years. So.
Yeah, Dr. Thurman Fleet, phenomenal. The Body Keeps the Score. That was another great one. I was messing with Bessel van der Kolk. Peter Levine.
Yeah, that's the Watiko, right? You wrote that?
No, that's Peter Levy.
Yeah.
And then like David Hawkins, Stefan Walensky. This has been a huge one. Like the Tao of Chaos. Other great books like the Tao of Physics. This is another huge one. Like blending like ancient philosophy with modern science. Like the quantum model of thinking, it's already happening. Just most people aren't conscious of it. And once I started saying, it's like, this is why people are suffering. They're living in a linear model of consciousness, which keeps them stuck in this loop. And like a lot of those teachings are presented with a lot of these modern authors. And I was like, we just got to find ways to package this in such a way that people can integrate it into their psychology, because essentially we are all our own author of our own reality, but we've been programmed to give so much of our power away. And like the key to this is learning how to take your power back and learning how to become your own healer. Because when you learn to become your own healer, you're able to change your life in unimaginable ways. And that actually doesn't only affect yourself, but the people that you love. Like one of the things I love most about teaching shadow work is that once you integrate your shadow, you're able to support other people because you recognize when they're projecting their shadow into you, which really saves you a lot of time, energy, and money in terms of wasting it on relationships that aren't conducive towards you living the best life. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah. And that reminds me of a passage I read in your book just today. I'm sorry I haven't finished it yet. I'm almost there, but it's great. And yeah, one of the things I want to praise you about the book is like you write in a way that I would kind of write as well. And that's a bias in and of itself. But all that aside, it makes you think, and it makes you work. And, books like this, you want to read really slow and digest slow and even reread some things here and there. And the fact that you have like, little spaces to write notes, and you're encouraging a lot of participation in this. I mean, this is not a spectator sport, right? So you're giving a lot of tools and motivation and inspiration in the space to do so. Great ideas all around with all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because it's not just a book, it's a workbook. It's like, for me, I wanted to make sure like there should be no barrier to entry. Like I charge a decent amount to work with me as a coach, but I want to be able to work with anybody. I don't want to be like any barrier to you working with me. So being able to have a book that I'm only selling for, it's gonna be like $15 to buy the book. You can do it all on your own. And then if you need some support, just like shoot me email. I want to be able to help anybody with this journey, because as I mentioned, it's really about healing the collective shadow of humanity. Each person that does this work, you're healing the collective shadow of humanity. And that's where humanity's at right now. Our shadow is running our lives, and it's beautiful, because this is the greatest opportunity in history for humanity to actually wake up. We're not going to rely on government. We're not going to rely on religion. We're going to learn to feel our own hearts. We're going to connect with our soul, and we're going to become the greatest version of ourselves. And we won't need religion or government to do that, because we'll actually be in touch with our true self, our essence. And when I say essence, who you were when you were born into this world. When you were born in this world, you didn't have religion or government. You had your heart, you had your soul. And the more people reconnect with that, you become your own healer. And that's the difference between Western medicine and Eastern medicine. Western medicine wants to cut, burn, and drug everything. Eastern medicine, you're just going to connect to your soul. When you're connected to your soul, you actually heal without burning, cutting, or drugging things. Which, don't get me wrong, like certain situations, you need Western medicine. If you're in an emergency situation, those drugs and things, they can keep you alive so you can get back to connecting with your soul. But if you're not harmonizing Eastern and Western medicine, you're failing. And let's just be real straight. That's what we need to do, is harmonize the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the east and the west, the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang. And the more we're able to do that, the more we're going to set ourselves free, people. So a lot of people who disagree with my teaching, it's okay, because you're probably stuck in a linear masculine yang. It has to be this way because it was in the past. Well, your past, we're going way into the past to reinvigorate ancient Taoist philosophy so you can have a harmonized mind and embrace your yin feminine nature and balance out your mind, your body, your heart, and like I said, your soul.
Sounds like some logistics to keeping it holistic with a W in front,
Yes,
nice and whole. And yeah, that's great. Made me think of a couple things, but I think I didn't even mention what I read in your book in regards to healing the collective. And it's been said before, but seeing it written in a book, these are the things you want to have repetitively in our minds as well, that we are a drop in an ocean, and that's going to ripple out whether you want it to or not.
Yeah.
How is that effect going to be coming from one's own cause, and where's that cause coming from? Is it heart-based intelligence, like you're getting at with all that, with the balanced yin yang, left brain, right brain, with logic, and in emotion stuff, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's time to end the trance, maybe. And please expand on that, because I heard this from you just a couple months ago, and I just man, I love it. I can't stop saying it.
That was hilarious. Actually, the book I just showed you, I got it from this.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, cool.
Yeah. And that's what essentially we're talking about, is transcending. And that's your ending the trance. Transcending is ending the trance. That so many people are in this trance. It's like, I laugh, because like people are so addicted to their ego. Like, I am my traumatic childhood. I identify with my prescription drug. It is me. And it's not. I'm so sorry. It's not. And the more we actually end the trance and start to awaken to our true potential, like a Taoist mystic or monk, they realize they're connected to everything. And most people that are struggling, they're in a trance because they feel that they are this skin encapsulated ego, like, I'm in this body and everything around me, what will I do? And they have all this internal chaos because they've never done their shadow work. So they're like this Oreo cookie, and they're the cream stuck in the middle of external chaos and internal chaos. And they're like, what do I do? Like, I need another anxiety pill. I need another depression pill. Cognitive behavioral therapy. And they're sitting there talking, and there's like nothing's actually changing. But coming back to your point of cause and effect, is most people are stuck and not stuck. They're addicted to being a victim. They love being a victim. They love waking up each day and like, oh my God, I'm feeling something. I'm going to pop a pill, instead of actually facing the emotion that they're experiencing, because they're just dealing with effects. It's something that Mark Passio said, that dealing with effects and just like staying in victim mode is essentially rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. You've done absolutely nothing. You didn't do a damn thing wrong. I rearranged the deck chairs. The Titanic is going down, but we rearranged the deck chairs so my life on the surface looks really good, even though it's going down. So the truth is, if you really want to change your life and get out of victim mode, you have to realize how powerful you are. And that's the essence of what I teach. I show people that you are the cause creating the effect. Let me say that again, because it's so powerful. You are the cause creating the effect. If you're living your life based upon effects, you will not only be stuck in victim mode, but addicted to victim mode. I'm just going to take my pill. I'm just going to keep watching TV. I'm going to keep using drugs. I'm going to keep masturbating to porn, playing video games. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But if you're not living the life that you deserve, it's nobody else's fault. It's nobody's fault at all. It's just the fact that you haven't examined your internal world in such a degree to realize that you are the cause creating the effects. And once you become the cause creating the effects, you're no longer a victim. And that's why I love shadow work, because you finally integrate those repressed emotions, so you're not living in that victim mode stuck in your past. And that is literally magical.
Hell yeah. Flipping the script, man. That was really well said. Thank you. And because yeah, I mean, like, we do live in this collective consciousness, in this reality, and it's not just necessarily us behind the wheel of every single effects that happened to us in our life. You might get whatever, hit some kind of accident. I mean, just a quick example, but aside from all the external stuff from us, your book really helps people understand and gives some mental tools to work with, because we are inundated with media and people and situations in society that attempt to trigger us into reactionary states every day. And what your book is trying to do is help one navigate through all that and stay at a more responsible level to our emotions, like being able to responsibility, instead of just like this reactionary thing that other people want out of you, because we have like this narcissistic notion, even from government all the way down to your average person.
Yes.
And people trying to feed off of other people's energy and attention and all that, because they can't get that self-perpetuated satiated feeling within themselves, if you will.
Yeah, well, you have to look within. And that's essentially, like when I talked about like shadow work is essentially Taoist philosophy. It's the yin nature. And most of society is operating from this yang nature. Now, like yang nature is essentially masculinity. It's like a peacock that's showing off its feathers. And it could be you could be a male or a female. Women out there kind of show off their booty and their boobs, which there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to judge it. But if you're doing that all the time, you're probably really insecure. So you're using your body and flashing your tail feathers, which is really just yang energy, and men showing off as well. The true essence is the yin nature, which is the feminine nature. It's stillness, it's calmness, it's allowing your body to heal. And that's what happens. A lot of people, they stay so busy, but they can't actually heal themselves. Now, I say that I'm speaking from my own personal experience. Now, like 3-4 years ago, I was running my 2 gyms. I had a film studio. I had an online business. I had an Airbnb. I had multiple businesses running. I was making over 6 figures. I was helping a lot of people, so it felt really good. But I was actually running from my pain. I was so much in my yang energy, and like I was helping people. I was making good money, and like I was enjoying it. But I started all these physical health problems that were showing up within like my lower back and certain things. So that's what made me get curious. And the beauty of that is I slowed down. Like I slowed way down and really embraced that yin nature. And that's allowed me to finally really deeply heal myself. And going through that process, we often say in the coaching industry, your mess becomes your message, your crap becomes your fertilizer. And so all the stuff that I went through, it's neither bad nor good. It's just part of my message, because other people are probably going through a similar thing in their lives and they need support. And so I'm able to support those people through that journey. And the essence of this teaching is really learn how to integrate that yin and yang nature within yourself. And that's what shadow work really is. It's your yin and yang nature harmonized in such a way that like masculine energy is electric, feminine energy is magnetic. So when you're operating from the electromagnetic frequency, like a lot of people are so out of touch with their yin energy, which is magnetic, feminine energy, that they're not attracting the life that they deserve. So when you actually honor that magnetic frequency and harmonize those aspects, which is really your left and right hemispheres of your brain, which is Taoist alchemy, you begin to be an attractor field of magnetizing the life that you've always deserved. Now, people who are still in the linear model of consciousness, like, what's he talking about? I'm a victim from my past. Like, you're not a victim from your past. You're just addicted to it. You've never had a coach who actually could teach you how to do that. That's why I did all this work to specialize in it, so that you can actually learn the tools to create that attractor field and begin to attract the life of abundance that you've always deserved. That's a key thing. It's not the life that you want, it's what you deserve. It totally changes the language structure, so you're in that magnetic field attracting the life of abundance that you have always deserved. That's a very key point to my teaching.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I guess reading over that, I have to kind of put a pause off of, you know, how I feel about that word sometimes, because I get the new age notion of it sometimes in context just because I've read other new age stuff. But yeah, going back to causality, I mean, if people are, yeah, they're just stuck in the linear model, they're in these negative feedback loops, they're creating their issues themselves. So do they deserve anything outside of the reality that they're creating for themselves already? Technically, they earn what they're getting, kind of, you know,
Yes.
cause and effect. But outside of that, you know, we're talking about the potential of what they can get, right?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I read recently in the Tao is that, like, everything in the universe actually has equal value. And so, like, a lot of people, they struggle with their own self-worth. Like, some limiting beliefs that come up for people in shadow work is like, I'm not worthy of love. Money doesn't grow on trees. My feelings aren't valid. And we have these unconscious operating systems that are beliefs. And I mentioned this in my book, as you remember, that you have this, if you have this unconscious operating system, excuse me, I had to get a burp out. I'll give you an example. Like, you're a little boy, you're a little girl, and you are going to your mommy and daddy, and you're like, "Hey, I'm seeking love from my mommy and daddy." And then your parents, who maybe messed up from like their PTSD or something, or they didn't even know what PTSD was until 1980. They may shame you as a means of controlling you. So you're this little child, and you're like, "I want to be loved," and your parents shame you, and you're like, you don't even know what shame is. It's just this emotion that you're feeling in your body, like shame. You're like, I want love, I'm getting shame. I want love, I'm getting shame. I want love, but I'm getting shame. So then your unconscious goes, love is equal to shame. And then you become an adult, and then you're out dating, and you're let me say this very slowly, you are unconsciously attracting people. They're going to allow you to continue to feel that shame, and it's going to make you miserable until you face the unconscious wound. This is why people don't get it. They keep living these miserable lives because they're stuck in the effects, because they didn't get to the root cause. This is where, like, a lot of, like I said before, if a doctor or therapist is not getting to the root cause, they are wasting your time. And I'm like, I don't want to sound like I'm harping on doctors and therapists. Like, I'd say 80 to 90% of doctors and therapists, they're not trauma informed. They don't really know what they're doing. If they're just drugging you and talking to you, they're just taking your time, energy, and money. We have to get to the root cause, and the root cause is the repressed, suppressed, or denied emotion. The more we access that space, like I said before, it's going to set you free, but we have to be willing to do that work. And that's the essence of shadow work, is acknowledging those repressed, suppressed, denied emotions.
Oh yeah, well said again, man. You've been on fire for years. What else is new? But yeah, it just makes me think, because yeah, being in just a different environment, and like kind of being and you advise this in your book, which is great, you know, needing solitude, you know, like the hermit card, right? Really, you know, get into a reclusive state so you can really, you know, draw back and see, you know, your life without any kind of being subjugated to anyone else besides you, you know, and taking a digital detox helps as well, all that stuff. But yeah, like 10 years ago, rather, living in France, I mean, I had like, yeah, one of those spiritual awakenings, and just, you know, going through the alchemical process of and the shadow work, even though I wasn't even familiar with those terms per se at the time. And it's like, man, if I had a coach like you with the guidance, I probably wouldn't have struggled as much. It wouldn't have taken as much time to get on the right track. And, you know, there's a lot of like learning the hard way, trial and error and stuff. So what kind of advice would you give to someone that's there? they feel like they can do it by themselves, that stubborn feeling of, like, I don't need a coach, I got this. What would you say to people like that, and how would it, to like convince them, like, hey, maybe, give it a shot.
Well, everything that I teach, you could do it on your own. It's going to take you at least 3 to 5 years. I can teach you in less than 3 months. And it's just like, how much do you want to suffer? Do you want to suffer for another 3 to 5 years? Go ahead. I'd be more than willing to give you all the books, but it's going to take you 3 to 5 years. I mean, I have all this content. And like, just even me writing my book, like, I could have gone out and learned how to write a book. I hired a coach. I paid them $5,000 to help me get my book out. I already had it written, but I had no clue how to go through the process. Okay, I have a book written. How do I get it out? And so I could do it on my own, but for me, it probably would have taken me like a year, but it's taken me 3 months from actually having the book to now getting it out. And like, I have a support system of somebody who's walked the path. And that's the essence. I'm teaching people how to walk the path that I've already walked. So you can't totally do this on your own. There's no pressure. I'm not like, for me in coaching, it's like, I really believe in being in my yin energy. I'm a magnet. I attract people who are ready to do the work. And if you're not ready to do the work, you're not going to be attracted to me. And that's totally fine. I just want to be able to like offer as much support to people as possible. It's like I said, I have the book, so anybody can afford doing that and doing the work on their own. But the key point about having a coach specifically doing this deep work is we become a mirror showing you parts of yourself that you're just not seeing, and your ego won't let you see some of those aspects. And getting clarity, I often say in shadow work, 90% of your shadow is pure gold. It's just the 10% of darkness that you have to sift through. And you can do it on your own, but it's much easier when you have support. And as a coach, what I do is I hand you the tools, show you how to use the tools and what's going to come up when you're digging, but the digging you must do yourself. But I keep you accountable. A lot of people, even as a fitness coach, people, they could go out and learn how to work out on their own. You know what I'm saying? Like, go watch YouTube videos, bro. But like the accountability to make sure that you're continuously getting those reps in, because it's just like working out. You got to be consistent. If you're not consistent, you're not going to get the results. And that's the key point, is having the accountability. And the tools are out there, but I'm handing you sharp tools that cuts right through the BS real fast, so you can heal yourself in a much faster way. And that's really the key to this. It's a system. What is the word system? Save yourself time, energy, and money. So I have a system where you save yourself time, energy, and money, and you can live a more fulfilling life in less time, but you can totally do it on your own, no pressure. It's really about enjoying the process, man, because like the key thing here is like, so many people are living in this false light reality where they're like, oh, focus on the positive. But like, it's just the law of polarity. The more you face the ugly parts and really acknowledge the ugly parts of yourself, that's when your life actually becomes beautiful. And that's part of the essence of cause and effect. We have to face the ugly parts. Otherwise, we can't know our true beauty. And that's a lot of like, you look at the world with like Hollywood, everyone's trying to look good on the outside, not looking so good on the inside, and they're faking it. And that's where you got to be willing to do that work. And then when you do that, you start attracting new people and things and abundance into your life that's unimaginable. That's why I love it. Like I was with somebody last night, and she's like, she's doubled her income just by doing shadow work, because she had this lack of self-worth that she was struggling with. And once she started to acknowledge that and work with it, now she feels worthy and she's attracting more money, and she's actually starting to find better men in her life too. I was like, yes, that's the reason why I teach this stuff. And I love it. It's beautiful seeing the transformation.
Man, that's great. Yeah, because that yang, or the yang energy, I love how, hanging out with you and working out with you over the past couple of months has really been great for me, being back in good old America. But it really depends on the level of one's consciousness and their those shadow desires as well, especially if they haven't been properly addressed and healed and revealed, right? What exactly are they going to be attracting into the life? So and I love what you mentioned, and there's some crappy vibes within us, but we got to use that and do some soul gardening with the fertilizer. And I loved reading that part in the book. Could you kind of emphasize a little to the people out there?
Well, I'm really into wordplay. It's like the word soil and the word soul are pretty much the same word. It's just a different vowel. Like, how are you saying your vows? And right, that's the esoteric nature of our language. And a tree does not grow strong branches without strong roots, and you don't see those roots. That's why you got to go into the darkness. You got to go deep into that darkness, and those roots grow strong in those dark spaces, and boom, the tree really grows. And so many people are like, why isn't my tree growing? It's like, because you didn't actually grow the roots. You didn't water the roots. You didn't really plant the seed properly. And that's the essence of shadow work, is it's soul gardening. The word psyche in Greek means soul. And people that are struggling with their psychology, you're really struggling with your soul. And just like I said before, Western medicine, they want to cut, burn, and drug. Eastern medicine, connect you to your soul. See how simple that is? Wasn't that weird how simple? It's like drug, burn, cut. Eastern medicine, your soul.
Yeah.
That's what blows my mind. People in the West are like, a soul? What's that? Like, there's like, oh my God, like, no wonder you're struggling. And like,
yeah, reminds me of some of the videos you've been doing on TikTok and stuff. Those are
like,
really fun and
great. Soul? They're like, oh, where is it? Where's the soul? It's like, it's inside of you. This is why you hire a coach, so we can actually begin digging for the gold and plant seeds in that soil, and boom, your whole life takes off in every different direction, because that's quantum thinking. There's infinite possibility in every different direction. But if you're still stuck in the linear model of Western masculine yang energy thinking, you're going to be missing a lot. You're going to be missing out your whole life. It's like YOLO, bro. Like, you only live once. Like you're living in this unconscious reality where you're not living to your potential. So like, you could really live to a much greater potential when you're willing to actually do the work. And like, I'm making a lot of jokes and stuff. I want to respect the fact that people are in a different space in their healing journey. I do my best to make it fun. It should be a fun journey. When I coach my clients, we laugh, we cry, we heal, and we learn to love ourselves. And that's what the essence of this is all about. It's really about us loving ourselves again. Because like, how can you authentically love someone else, like your family, your friends, your brother, your sister, your cousin, if you don't love yourself? And that is so powerful. That's why I love doing this stuff. And like I said, I'm making jokes and stuff because, like, to me, it's like we're watching like some fucked up comedy, like dark comedy. People in the world, like, what are you doing? It's like, hey guys, I've been eating fast food, watching TV, and playing video games. I'm like, my sex life kind of sucks, and I'm getting diabetes. I'm like, I'm not really that happy. It's like, just pauses. Look at your life, bro. Like, and so, I mean, like I said, if you're living your life without your shadow integrated, your unconscious is running your life. You're going to keep not loving yourself and wondering why you're suffering. Because like I said, from this one book, and I keep pulling it out because this is actually a really good book, is that the human aspect is disconnected from the soul. The human aspect, who your ego, who you think you are, is disconnected from your soul. So this is where we talk about like your inner demons. Ooh, let's talk about some dark stuff. Your inner, when I say demons, it's like when you repress, suppress, or deny emotions. You're like, imagine like there's a part of myself that I'm not looking at. That part of me is going to get pissed. Oh, you're not going to face your anger. You're going to disassociate from your anger. Then like you're going to get triggered, and the anger is going to come out in ugly ways. And that's essentially our inner demons coming out.
Yep.
When you actually face your inner demons and acknowledge them, and you have a conversation with them, then they become your guide rather than your saboteur. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. When you actually do shadow work, those inner repressed aspects of your psyche that are your demons, you acknowledge them, you talk to them, you do your journaling, you do your meditation work, you really ground yourself and have that conversation with that part of you, that disassociated aspect of yourself, and you reintegrate it into your psyche. That's when your saboteur becomes your guide. Instead of a part of you that's sabotaging you, it becomes your guide, because wow, it's like this wounded aspect of yourself. You finally acknowledge it, and you go, it's like, wow, you finally acknowledge me. I'm going to help you make all your dreams come true now, rather than making you date people who shame you. Like, isn't that amazing? Like, you're not going to feel shame anymore, and you finally are loved, and you can love yourself because you're not repressing those parts of yourself. This is, like I said, like, even like for me, I realized how much I was sabotaging myself by repressing parts of myself. And just to share a little bit more about my journey, like, I realized I had a lot of anger. Once I got into the anger, I realized I had a lot of fear. When I got into the fear, I realized I had abandonment. My father, as I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, my father worked in Hollywood. I have an amazing father. Like, I'm really lucky to have such a great father, but he was gone all the time as a child. So I had a lot of fear and anger that arose from that. And I repressed it. I denied myself feeling those emotions for years. And they were killing me from the inside. I think this is where a lot of men really struggle. We're like, don't feel that anger, don't repress that fear, right? But feeling those emotions really set me free, and it made me really actually love myself. Instead of repressing those aspects of myself, I began to love myself more fully. And that was like, you can't put a price tag on how beautiful that is, man. Like, when you finally fully love yourself, like, what's that worth? You know?
Yeah, it's like an epiphany type of moment for sure. And yeah, you're living the love story, and that'll really, yeah, like you said, open up all the doorways for all the fish in the sea, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it really
Yeah,
comes down at the end of the day. Doing this work is to have a fully integrated psyche. And when I say fully integrated psyche, it's a fully integrated soul. And that's like the soul journey in this life, is to reconnect with our essence. And when we do that, it really makes things a lot easier for us. And a lot of people are struggling, and it's because they don't really know how their mind works. They really have no clue. And like that's where we got to get to, where we teach people how their mind actually works. That's the rhetoric. We talked about, like, not that I want to get into like the trivium, but it's really a blueprint. One of the things I talk about a lot with, like, I blend NLP, neuro linguistic programming, is that people, the map is not the territory. So you could have a traumatic past and you have this map of like, I'm not worthy of love, and you get triggered and your old map comes out, I'm not worthy of love. And then you're not even paying attention to your current reality. You're using this old map to navigate your reality. And it's not reality, it's your map. And so a big part of like coaching people is helping to realize how that map, the how that they're navigating their life, they can start to rewire their mind and be able to rewrite that map. And then that creates a new perspective in how they can live their lives. And like I said, by integrating that psyche, they can love themselves completely.
oh yeah, yeah. And I was hoping you'd mention, what the Greek word of psyche really means. We love etymology, don't we? And we love our trivium methods and the quadrivium and all that good stuff, man. It yeah, it's funny coming back to the whole Western medicine, cut slash burn, whatever, but it just seems like, what people have been conditioned to under this model. And they try to make it as simple as the Eastern, like, hey, it's all about the soul, baby. And they're like, hey, it's all about just this one pill you need. And it's just like, boom, like, it's like the instant gratification, that instant healing. Like, it's just touching the easy button without like the real inner work involved, and that's really what takes people away from that yin part of that holistic journey towards healing, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, a lot of it, I think that I don't think I know. It's just people need to actually begin to really face, like, and look within themselves. And we're not taught how to do that. Like, I mean, like, that's where most people are struggling. They have like, our education system doesn't teach you how to balance a checkbook. What's even worse, it doesn't teach you how to balance your emotions. And a lot of people make poor emotional decisions because they don't understand how their brain works. As I was saying before, they're stuck in their amygdala, they're stuck in fight or flight mode, and it's really messing up their lives. And that's where, like, I've really learned, like, when I was younger, much more judgmental. I was like, why are people so stupid? Then as I studied more psychology, I was like, people aren't stupid. They're just unconscious. They're literally walking around reliving their childhood wounds they probably inherited from their parents, and they inherited from their grandparents. And we keep going back and back, and we can't blame our parents or our grandparents. They didn't have the tools that we have today. And that's where, like, I feel that in terms of psychology, humanity is like a little baby that just learned how to walk, and we're taking our first steps. And that's where we are in terms of understanding our psychology. That's where we are in terms of understanding our nervous system. We don't really understand how our nervous system works. And really, our nervous system is hardwired through our emotions. And the more we repress our emotions, it throws off our nervous system. And that nervous system dysregulation affects every aspect of our lives. So this is why I'm so keen. And I still have a lot to learn myself. Like, I'm really talented at what I teach. Got a lot of experience, but it's like one of those things. The more you learn, you're like, wow, there's so much more to learn. And like, I think being a true expert, really the only difference between being a beginner and expert is you're really able to discern truth versus lies. And so I'm able to really, like, if you know your stuff, I'm going to be able to call you out if you're speaking some stuff that's not real, And with that said, I'm still learning too, because like I still want to learn more about how this nervous system works. Like, this nervous system is like, it's a superpower when you have your nervous system harmonized, and when it's disharmonized, you're really going to struggle.
Real talk. Yeah. And like, the first initial step for anyone going on any kind of path or just living any kind of life, isn't it just to be honest with oneself, not to lie to oneself, Yeah,
well, if you have parents that lived a certain way, you'll unconsciously take on a lot of those traits, especially people who are very empathic. I know it's a trigger word for some people, but some of us are very empathic. And when I say empathic, you really feel emotions deeply. And people who are like empaths, it is hell. It is straight hell when you haven't learned how to integrate your emotions. But when you have being an empath is like a superpower because you're way more intuitive. You have almost psychic abilities. And that's one of the things that I've learned, and especially after 20 years and 20,000 hours of coaching, I just kind of know what people need to hear by listening to their language structure. As I mentioned, my father worked in Hollywood. He was a sound mixer. Like when I say sound mixer, we're talking 9-time nominee for best sound mixer in the world, literally one of the best listeners in the world. And what I learned from my father, and I love this about my father, is that you take the word heart, H-E-A-R-T, the center of the word heart is ear. So we have to learn to listen. Most people their mind is just going so fast. They haven't learned to listen to their own heart. And that's where it's being brutally honest about your wounds. It's if you had a laceration on your leg, you wouldn't walk around bleeding on everybody, but that's what people are doing with their emotions. People are wounded emotionally and they're walking around bleeding on the people they love, and they wonder why their relationship sucks because you have a wound and you're not facing it, and you're causing a lot of harm to the people that you love. Not that I'm trying to guilt trip people, it's just being brutally honest about this stuff. It's people have a laceration, they put a little Band-Aid on and oh, this is gonna fix it. It's no, you gotta actually face it, bro.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it reminds me of a couple of things. Going back to your book, which you mentioned some other things you spoke about just 5 minutes ago that were great. I'm not going to go over that, but what I wanted to mention real quick, going along with some physical pain, is when you mentioned in your book, the whole issue with joint problems that are linked to repressed emotions. And I wanted to ask you also for, people that are dealing with actual physical traumas, they got cut open for surgery or they had some gruesome accidents or whatever, and I love this part when you mention in the books that the issues are in the tissues, but that's stemming from more the emotional aspect. But as far as people that are suffering a lot of physical trauma as well, what are some of the ways they can kind of go about healing that psyche that's connected to that pain or that initial shock of what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm so into Taoist philosophy. And when I say Taoist philosophy, I've been studying it for a few years, and it's oh my God, you could spend a whole lifetime studying this. But a lot of it comes down to our Jing, our Qi, and our Shen. And I speak about this a little bit in the end of the book where I talk about Taoist philosophy. And a lot of people their Qi is not moving properly. So when I say that Qi isn't moving properly, if you're repressing emotions, or let's say you've actually sustained a real injury, I snapped my Achilles tendon about 10 years ago, and I healed a month ahead of schedule. I blew the doctor's mind. And what I did is every day I imagined just sending positive energy into my Achilles. Literally, when I say imagine, I was sitting there, I was stuck in bed for a couple of months, so I didn't really have a lot to do. I just meditated so deeply into sending positive energy, just loving energy, just high vibrational energy to my Achilles tendon, and I healed a month ahead of schedule. It blew their mind. I take very good care of myself. I'm not perfect, but I probably take better care of myself than 95% of the world in terms of diet and exercise. And I still to have a cheeseburger once in a while. I still eat some French fries occasionally, but at the same time, I'm pretty keen to listening to my body. And I learned a lot of, like I said, from my father, is really deeply learning to listen. But in terms of healing ourselves, the root of the word to heal means to make whole. If you go and look it up, to heal means to make whole. So it's really filling the gaps within ourselves, where we're mitigating the suffering within ourselves, and it's being honest about those injuries. Now, you get into a car accident and you have some injuries, and your vibrational frequency will allow you to heal faster if you're vibrating from a higher frequency. You're oh, I'm a victim, guilt, shame, anger, sadness. Your body's not going to heal as fast. If you're feeling gratitude, abundance, bliss, joy, you're going to heal faster. And that goes across the board in all instances. And it's people who get cancer, the people who believe they're going to heal are usually the ones that heal. My mother had breast cancer, and she healed her. It was only stage 1, but she was so loved. When you don't have people that love you, you don't love yourself, it's very difficult to heal. That's why a big thing for me, we need to build more communities. We need to have more support. And I'm kind of going all over the place a little bit here, but specifically, I work with a lot of women. I'm starting to work with more men. We need more spaces for men to feel safe talking about their pain. So many men, we bottle our emotional pain up. That was me for a long time. And when men don't feel safe feeling their emotional pain and expressing it, we hold on to it internally. And this is a personal opinion. I think that's the root cause of much of our cancers, fibromyalgia, heart disease, is because we're repressing our emotional pain. And that's what's killing us from the inside out. And so, like, one of my long-term goals is to develop a retreat space where I can help people get out into nature, take away their phones for a few days, and let them really reconnect with the earth and do very deep healing work. Because I feel like that is what we really need more than anything else. We need more community. We need to love each other. And that's where so many people are struggling, is we forgot to love each other. And love is kryptonite to this broken world. Like, we're living in fear. The kryptonite to fear is love. And that's where we got to get back to.
Totally, man. Yeah. Well said. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And it is quite tragic that, yeah, from the older generational, traumas that, our elders have, gone through and all that stuff. In society in general, it just wasn't a popular thing for men to be able to just express, deep emotional, sentiments and stuff. And they even got their asses kicked by family members for doing so, or this and that. And as a male in this incarnation, I feel that it's too bad that, among men, there is no real safe space. For me, I've always thought in my mind, like the majority of men would only feel vulnerable enough to share and shed their emotions with a woman, their partner, and the one that they confide in the most, that they love the most, even if they might not be treating them the right way all the time or whatever, because they're still projecting their unconscious shadow and et cetera, et cetera. What do you think about that?
Well, I feel like there's, like, it's always like the key thing is having people who really know how to listen to you. But it's like different, like being able to express your emotional pain to like your girlfriend or your wife, or like a woman, versus being able to sit with a group of other men. And women need this too, to be able to like sit with a tribe of like your same sex and be able to talk about your stuff, because it's just a little bit different. I've coached a lot of women. I've been in men's circles, and like I feel like a lot of men really need to have men's groups where they feel safe talking about their stuff, and because it's just a different vibe when you're talking with women, and it's different for each person too. It's very subjective. Like personally, I'm really good at talking about my stuff. It's not an issue for me, but like I've found that some people, they're just not going to feel safe, and we want to create a safe space so they can talk about their stuff. And so I really feel a lot of men, because of their trauma from their fathers not allowing them to express themselves, they have internalized it, and like they could talk to a woman about it, but they really need to talk with other men. And it's the same thing for women. Some women, they have like a lot of trauma with their mothers, so they need to sit with a group of women so they can express that. Like I said, this is like, it's subjective. It's really relative to the individual and their experience. But across the board, we need to have more safe spaces. We need to have coaches, healers, therapists, doctors who are properly informed of how to do this work. And like I'm still learning better tools of how to teach this stuff, because we have to have those safe spaces. It's in those safe spaces that you can become vulnerable enough to actually heal your wounds. And like, this is what people need more than drugs or therapy, is like to have like a community that loves each other. Like that.
Yeah, that made me think of Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. Why not Emotionals Anonymous? Not the same, 12-step program type of stuff, but, obviously, like, just along the lines of what you're talking about, some kind of community thing. And yeah, just thinking about, there is those safe spaces for people in AA, people expect to see other people crying and letting it out, right? But in a different context altogether, obviously. But yeah, moving along now, unless you want to say anything about that. Oh, man. So, I wanted to mention real quick, because, just other things I've noticed with a lot of men, especially in regards to like numbing their pain, avoiding it, finding distractions, and not just taking the proper time and attention and energy to focus on, their heartbreaks, their, shadow issues, inner work that they, feel like is worth addressing, but it's, it's a small little chatter in their mind. And what I, like for me, for example, after I got divorced from my wife, I was like, I don't want to be here. I need to go to my room and cry for the next month or so, whatever. And my coworker's like, yeah, you should be working even more than, just, that's what I do. I just work as much as I can just to forget about it and not let it, not think about it and all this stuff. And it's just like escapism, hey, they're getting some monetary gain, but it's like they're escaping and not being able to address the problem, which could obviously become worse and, be repressed and be projected out, in horrible ways.
Well, I love that you said that, because you just reminded me of something I read in this book on Chinese face reading.
Yeah.
Often the traumas we experience in life, this isn't even my opinion, I just read this in studying medicine. The traumas we face are actually part of our healing process, because we need, like, I don't want this to like blanket statement, every situation of trauma, like you were physically abused or sexual abuse or something, not every situation, but often the trauma you face was something your higher self puts you through so you could learn a lesson and find your golden path in life. And when I read that, I was like, whoa. Because like it goes right along with what I say in my book. What's happened or hasn't happened in your life is neither good or bad. You choosing to see it as good or bad is you being stuck in duality. And when we come back to the space of like forgiving the people who harmed us, forgiving ourselves for holding on to the pain, that is what sets us free to like actually acknowledge like the pain that I went through. Now I'm much more legit of a coach because I actually went through the shadow journey, right? I wouldn't be an authentic coach if I hadn't faced my own stuff. I hadn't been through some stuff. So is it really bad or good? It was really an opportunity for me to grow and become a whole and complete person. So a big part of this is coming back to the gratitude, the appreciation, and most importantly, being able to forgive others, but most importantly, being able to forgive yourself for holding on to the energy. And in doing that space, often it's like letting go of that energy opens up space for you to receive love, relationships, money, abundance that you've always deserved, but it can't show up because you're holding on to, I am a victim. I am a victim. You're identifying so much as being the victim that you can't receive anything new. You can't attract like the man or woman of your dreams, the money of your dreams, the life of your dreams, because you're identifying so much as the victim. All your energy is going to being this victim that it's being wasted. And that's why, like, coming back to like why I love teaching this stuff, because once we acknowledge that and we face it, we heal it, we integrate it, then all this abundance starts showing up in your life. And it's literally like magic. Like it literally is. It's alchemical magic. That you're able to attract more abundance into your life because you let go of certain things. But here's the problem. People identify with their trauma. They actually think, well, I am my trauma. Like this is who I am. I'm a wounded 5-year-old, and they're 45 years old and they're still the wounded 5-year-old. And it's weird how our minds work. When I said earlier, like we're like toddlers in terms of understanding our psychology. Because the more I studied psychology, oh my God, like most people are playing in the kiddie pool. There's a fucking ocean out there. You know what I mean? They're like, this is the kiddie pool, guys. So great, the kiddie pool. It's like, go to the depths, go swim into the abyss and find yourself. And like, that's where it may seem dangerous, but that's where you're really going to discover yourself. And that's where I support people, because when you go into the abyss, I help people to support them through that process. And each person, it's a beautiful journey. And it really just allows you to actually come to the surface and like breathe a new life into your life, because you finally went into the depths of who you are. You actually acknowledged your soul and integrated it, or your psyche.
Awesome, man. Well said. And did anyone ever ask you for a life jacket while swimming in the abyss? And that's kind of why you're there, right? Coach, lifeguard, all that good stuff, So yeah, that's great that you were able to hold space for people that confide in you and trust you, and the results there. But the result isn't just because of the coach. It's because the person did the work, took coach's advice, got it done, and maybe then some, and voila, man. So that's great. Does it seem that some people you coach, do they need that, little push off the diving board type of thing, or just some subtle words of motivation type of thing?
I think it really depends on the person. As I mentioned, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's really about like listening not to what people say, but how they say it, the rate, the pitch, the tone, the inflection, the power words that are describing their unconscious reality. Some people, you got to build them up. So other people, you got to break them down. And it just depends on the individual. right? Some people are just, they've already been broken down so much, we got to build them up. Some people have built themselves up so much that it's like such a false ego, they have to break them down. And it's almost like an analogy, like you break your bone and then it heals, but it doesn't heal right, so you got to re-break it. And it's kind of like that sometimes. We have to break it down because you didn't heal properly. And so, I mean, that essentially is, it depends on the person. That's where, like, working with a coach like me, I've been 20,000 hours. Like I'm not gonna say I've seen it all, but I've seen enough where I'm able to know what people need. I've tapped into that intuitive nature where I'm not thinking so much, feeling into what your needs are. And that feeling into that space, I help you to feel into what your needs are. Really about cultivating a connection to your highest self and bringing that energy into the space where you're able to actually face your wounds and feel safe going through that process. Because if you don't feel safe, your shadow is not going to change until you feel that safe space and you honor or acknowledge those wounds.
Yeah. Well said. And in your book, you talk about how, the unconscious, subconscious, mind field is more or less, it's not logical, right? It kind of sees things in blobs and shapes and all that. And for me also, I would interpret it as well as kind of just like ineffable feelings or ways to describe certain feelings, or in a sense, would that also work? But also just help me make this abstract stuff make more sense.
The analogy that I used, and I've had a lot of world-class coaches tell me this is a beautiful way of expressing it, is shadow work. There's essentially 3 levels to the mind. There's actually 4. We're going to focus on 3. So we have the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the unconscious. And the way I explain this, it's like a boat that's trying to get to its destination. And you're like, I want to lose weight, make more money, find true love, whatever it is. And you're like consciously above the surface, you're like rowing towards your goal. Like, yeah, man, I'm doing this new diet. Yeah, it's going to be great. Like, I'm working. Man, my body's gonna look good, and you're like run, and then like why am I not getting my destination? It's like because you're fighting the current, and the current is the subconscious mind. So the current, which is the subconscious mind, only works on images. So the images you have an image in your mind of not being good enough, you're going to be fighting that current. It's going to be very difficult. So I had a lot of success as a fitness coach helping people shift their subconscious mind. And then when I started getting into the deeper works of the unconscious mind, it was the realization that many people weren't just rowing the boat, they're actually sitting on the back of the boat, looking at the wake of the ship, which is just their past, and defining their future by looking at their past. So like, where's the boat going? And then even worse, many people had actually thrown anchors into the water. Those anchors were latched onto a rock, and they're just going in circles because unconsciously addicted. I am the abuse from my childhood, and they're just going in circles, and they're wondering like, why am I not changing? So when we work with the unconscious, it's deep. It's those anchors deep below the surface. And I'm explaining it logically, but it's not logical when we get in there. But the essence is we actually remove those anchors, pull them back on board. In some cases, we cut those anchors. That sets you free unconsciously. The blob or the shape we talked about in the unconscious then begins to sift up into the subconscious. Now it's more of like an image, okay? As we begin to work with those images, like you're holding on to this deeply repressed image from your childhood, then we bring it to the surface, and that actually allows the current to shift, and then you're able to manifest your dreams with less effort. This comes back to, like I said, you can do all this work on your own. It's going to take you 3 to 5 years. You hire a coach like me, 3 to 6 months, and then you don't need therapy or prescription drugs anymore. And then I say that like you should talk to your doctor, of course, but it's really relative. We're overprescribing like opioids to numb pain. If we actually face the emotional pain, we could set ourselves free by moving through those different layers of the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, great stuff. And have you worked with the clients that were kind of recovering from drug abuse or addictions? And
yeah,
what were some of the things that seemed, I mean, I'm not going to ask you again because of course it's subjected to the individual.
Yeah,
of course. Oh man, that's great. It sounds like you were definitely able to help them. In your book, you talk about the good old 3-2-1 reframing process.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I like that. I know that's shifting to a different, topic about what we're discussing, but
yeah.
Was there anything you wanted to mention about that? Because I really like it. We're talking about third person, the second person, and the first person. And this is just something that I've kind of been or I don't know, I've had this disposition in my life, like always looking at things from different perspectives, and looking at from the third perspective, or not always not always the three perspectives, but man, it's just getting outside of just like the main narrative that we're in our ego minded head and stuff with the it's just really interesting. And I find that a really great tool for anyone to be, looking at themselves, right? And looking at any kind of situation that comes up or triggers them, or they're not looking forward to, whether it be workplace or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Talk about all that good stuff.
Well, I'll let people who want to read my book get into the actual 3-2-1 process. It's actually been,
Yeah.
I've heard it from many psychologists, many NLP experts, but let's talk about it from a different perspective. It's like a Taoist perspective. It's being able to look at things both objectively and subjectively. Now, subjectively is your own opinion. So people get stuck in their subjective opinion, which is essentially like spotlight vision, which isn't a bad or a good thing, but you could only focus on one thing. And moving to an objective reality is like floodlight vision. You're able to see all things. Now, neither one is like 100% correct, because there is your subjective truth, but there's also the objective truth. So being able to balance those two, most people are so addicted to their subjective truth that they have an image in their mind that they identify with, and that's the root cause of their suffering. So the reframing process allows them to reframe the process, going through that 3-2-1 process, where people are able to see things from third person, second person, and first person. And this reframes how they experience the trauma. And this allows them to actually begin to, in that reframing process, as I mentioned, like the story of the boat, the image held in the subconscious mind, or even deeper in the unconscious, as you reframe it, it's not like this big thing in your unconscious. It actually become smaller, so it's not running your life. And then when you get triggered, it's not going to throw you off as much, because oftentimes it's like the issues in the tissues. It's actually in your physiology, and then you're able to mitigate that stuff, and it relieves a lot of dis-ease that you could have or could show up in your life because you didn't face it. So that's like the essence of it. It's really coming back to subjective and objective nature. Like a Taoist monk understands the difference between subjective and objective, and really the harmonization of those two is almost like the yin and the yang once again.
Boom. Hell yeah, brother. Well said. Once again, my friend. What were some of the more challenging, or the most challenging parts of putting this book together? For like, you writing, not necessarily, the marketing stuff and all that stuff, but
like it's still coming up for me. It's like, and I've been coaching 20 years. I've given speeches to $100 million a year companies. I've made most of my dreams come true, but it's just like the imposter syndrome. When I say imposter syndrome, it's like I really believe that everybody should be talking about mental and emotional health problems. And I'm fighting this uphill battle where people say, well, you're not a doctor and you're not a therapist. You can't talk about this stuff with people. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Everyone should be talking about mental and emotional health problems. That's why I wrote my book. I do not need to be a doctor. I do not need to be a therapist. Everyone should be talking about, and sorry, I'm a little triggered here because I'm so sick of people telling me that because they're addicted to this appeal to authority, we have to have a doctor tell us. Like, no, go learn how your body works. That's what I did. And I'm just teaching people how their body works. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. That's the real essence of this. We don't need to be a doctor or a therapist. We all need to learn how our mind and our body work. And it's disconnecting our mind and our body, the disconnection from our hearts. And that's why most people are suffering, because they're not listening to their hearts. And that's why we have heart disease as the leading killer, because we're not listening to our hearts. And that's like the big thing for me is like, I'm just so sick of people trying to tell me that I'm not an authority. I am an authority. The word authority is author. And I got my own book. So go read my book, learn to become your own healer. We don't need to be doctors or therapists. We all need to learn to become our own healer. And that's the truth, baby. Like the more we can do this work and learn how to do it and build more community support, people won't have to go to the doctor or therapist as much. It's a huge racket, So we need to learn how these things. Like I said, I don't want to knock doctors and therapists. There's some that are amazing out there that have really helped me too. But we need to all learn to become our own healer. So that's been my biggest challenge. And like I said, hiring a coach helped me. Like coming back to like having a coach support me through the journey of getting my book out has been huge for me, because it probably would have taken me a lot longer.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, she seems like a sweet woman. I'm glad you hired someone that's perfect for the situation. So yeah, that's awesome. Why do people die from their way of life or their diets?
Well, the word diet comes from the Latin word dieta, meaning way of life. And your diet isn't just the food that you eat, it's the thoughts that you think, it's the media that you consume. And if you have toxic way of life or dieta, it's going to slowly kill you from the inside out. And we talk about like gut health, and like I have a degree in kinesiology with an emphasis in nutrition, right? Is that like your gut is essentially what's called the mesentery system. This comes back to like a lot of my learning. Most doctors aren't talking about the mesentery system. They only acknowledged it like 2 or 3 years ago that it's an actual system they've known for thousands of years in Eastern philosophy. The mesentery system is the second brain. The mesentery is the fat tissue that actually holds all your organs in place. And like I said, it's the second brain. So people struggle with their gut health. And like some of my advanced coaching that's not included in my book or the video courses, I'm teaching like Taoist 5-element theory. And your stomach is associated with the earth element. And a lot of people, they're not grounded. They're not grounded. And so they're using food as a way to ground themselves. That's why they're fat. That's why they're overweight. You know what I'm saying? Like I had all these notions of why people are overweight. In Taoist philosophy, you're overeating because you're not grounded. So you're using food to ground yourself through that earth element of your stomach. And there can be a lot of reasons why people struggle with their diet, but they're really struggling with their way of life. And that's essentially why, like I said, like coming from fitness and nutrition and then getting into shadow work, is I realize it's really emotional stuff. If you're suffering from repressed emotions, you're going to use food as a coping mechanism. If you're constantly addicted to fear, you're going to keep turning on the news and watching fear porn. So you get, yes, another hit of fear, right? But that's not helping you. And so the clarity around like actually grounding yourself, maybe doing some fasting to cleanse your system out, that's going to be huge in terms of your healing process, because you're cleansing out all that energy that's keeping you stuck. I've been saying
that makes me think. Sorry.
And one more thing is the word time backwards is emit. It's really about your energy. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I think fasting is one of the best ways to flip the script on anything one's trying to kind of eliminate in their life or change or shift towards. Like for me, I've done fasting so many times, especially through the Master Lemon Cleanse detox.
Yeah. What were you doing in college?
Yeah, man.
When we first did it in college, I was like, what's wrong with this guy? What's he doing? You're not eating. That was like 20 years ago, though.
Yeah, it's one of the things it's such a great tool for one to sharpen their own discipline towards as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, to really empty one's body out, and you become more of a light body, and you do have just a different type of energy. You have a different way of sleeping and a different way of thinking about even yourself and just the reality and consciousness, and like how long can we do this, guys, kind of thing. And like, what's the deal with food anyways? And why do we have to eat 3 meals a day, or why do we have to sleep for 8 hours and all this stuff? We're sleeping away a third of our life if we get the recommended 8 hours a day. Doesn't that, it is what it is. Not to get off track, but I already did get off track.
You know what? I think it really comes down to each person and their individual needs. But the good thing about like doing fasting, and I have different styles of dieting or way of lifing. But occasionally I do a 3-day fast just to like really cleanse my system up and give my internal organs a break from constantly processing food. And that can be very beneficial for your body to kind of reset itself. So I make sure I do it at least once a year, just a full 3-day fast of just cutting everything out. And I mean, like, you should do what you feel works best for you. But I think anybody can benefit from at least a 24-hour fast and kind of calming their system down, because it comes back to your nervous system. You're always processing stuff. Your nervous system can't be calm too.
Real talk, man. Well, what I have to say about all that is that life is like a pot of boiling rice, right? Yeah. I learned that from you, man.
5-element theory.
5-element, yeah. I don't know if you want to. I know that's your kind of
special teachings and stuff, but so like 5-element theory is like it has to do with the elements of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And so the essence is that the wood is the wood, the fire is the fire, the earth is the rice, the metal is the pot, and the water is the water. And so if you have an imbalance in any of these elements, and they're all within us actually, you're going to have some crappy rice. And so it's just an analogy based upon 5-element theory. And that's some of my advanced stuff. People go through my shadow work program, and then once they get through that and they understand how their psyche works and how to connect with their soul, then they get more deeper into like where they have imbalances with those emotions and what your Like I help people to support them with understanding what their dominant element is, and so they can figure out where their strengths and weaknesses are based upon their element. Like I'm a wood element, and like my strength and weakness is anger. Anger actually like is beautiful because anger is associated with spring and wood and like growing and creating businesses and being an entrepreneur. But also like if I don't focus on like how the anger is affecting my life, the anger can turn into rage if I repress it. So that was like big for me. Like when, especially like I said earlier, like anger was one of my issues, but anger is not actually a negative emotion. It's perceived negative in our society, but it's no more negative than any other emotion. And anger can actually be a beautiful thing for growth. That's why it's associated with the element of wood. If you try to like put cement over like roots, the roots will find a way to pop through and break through because it's that powerful. And that's the essence of anger. It cannot be stopped. And so for me, it's like learning how to harmonize that anger, because the wood element feeds the fire, and the fire is what makes you burn. But if you have too much wood, too much anger, you're going to burn yourself. So there's always a balance. And like, just not to get too deep into it, but there's a yin and yang aspect to each of the 5 elements. And that's why like I'm still learning this stuff as I teach it, but it's so powerful in terms of like, am I too much in my yin energy? Am I too much in my yang energy? How can I harmonize each of these elements so I can live a life of greater abundance and with greater ease? That's really like, I think like most people, including myself years ago, just doing too much. And now that I've like calmed it all down, I'm getting more results with less effort. And I think that's the real essence of this, is a greater efficiency.
That's awesome, man. And one of the things I wanted to ask you also is like, you're doing a lot of stuff and it's really great. And yeah, we've hung out quite a bit in recent times, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm kind of curious sometimes, like, man, how do you avoid spreading yourself too thin, I guess, in a sense, with all the workload that you're doing and all that stuff?
I take time to meditate every day. I'm really focused on my diet, focused on exercise, being, like I said a moment ago, being a wood element. Wood elements have to move. It's part of the thing that got me into fitness originally, is like I have to move my body and build my strength up. And meditation, like I gotta like ground myself. That's been a huge practice for me. And then like really taking time to do nothing. Like I said years ago, I was so busy running all my businesses. I'm actually making more money now working less because I got more efficiency and really like realized my own value. I wasn't valuing myself enough. I was just staying too busy. And when I say value, I was still making great money, but like now I'm like, the stuff I teach is freaking gold. I gotta like harmonize this in such a way that like I figure out how to package it better. And when I say that's where I've created like video course in the book. So there's like different levels, and it's like, doesn't matter who you are. Anybody can afford a $15 book to go and actually do this work, you know? But like that also makes it easier for me because I can get my wisdom out to more people and it's more efficient and effective. So it's all about systems. Like I said before, save yourself time and money. If you have proper systems, you're going to be much more harmonious. But essentially, to go back to answering your question, it's about really being in my yin energy. Yin, 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 yin. I'm really strong on my yang energy. But in the Tao Te Ching, it says, know the yang, but stay to the yin. Know the yang, but stay to the yin. The feminine will always conquer the masculine. The masculine will stay busy and go to war, but the feminine is just so strong. And the feminine is essentially the elements of water and metal are feminine, wood and fire are masculine. And the water puts out the fire and the metal chops the wood. So you got to understand like the balance between the elements too. You could be too feminine too as well. So but most of society is too yang. So really like doing nothing and just marinating deeply in that nothingness has been a beautiful aspect for me to heal myself and then be able to teach that. Who am I to sit here and try and teach being more yin if I'm not being more yin myself, right? Being a male and coaching lots of women, I'm teaching them how to harmonize their feminine nature because I've had to harmonize my feminine nature. And that's a beautiful thing because when I'm resting, my body can heal. When my body is healed, I can show up more authentically for my clients and support them more. But you have to walk that path first to be authentic.
Hell yeah. Yeah, because folks, this is a real guy, doing work with real people, face to face, hands on type of thing. Give me everything. Just like that. No. But yeah, it's not just, and you do videos and stuff like that on the side. That's part of, everything that's, benefiting your clients and all that. And I've been lucky and very thankful for you inviting me on to some of those presentations. But a lot of people get into their mind like, oh yeah, we're just going to put on a bunch of YouTube videos, and there's so many angles that we can take towards adding value to people's lives and all that stuff. And yeah, I just had to mention that just because we're on platforms like YouTube, and they might look at you and think like, oh yeah, where's this YouTube channel at and this and that. oh no, this brother's got a website and his YouTube channel, of course. We're going to put all those links in the description, of course. But the majority of what you're doing is just in real life, man. And that, I love that about you. And that's really just, yeah, very inspirational for me.
Thank you so much. Well, that's the whole essence of this, is being a mirror to other people's greatness. And I've been saying that for 20 years. That's really all I'm doing, is I'm mirroring your greatness. A lot of us forgot how great we are. Growing up with my father working in Hollywood, I grew up thinking that being successful in business was easy. It's not, actually. But I grew up around so many successful people that it was like, it's actually integrated into my unconscious. They're like, you just build a business and you just do it. And like, it's not, it's much harder than that. You know, because I failed. I had a clothing printing business, totally failed, you know, like I failed in business as well. But it really comes down to like mindset and how you're harmonizing your emotions. So that's a big part of like seeing my father and working in Hollywood, which is one of the most stressful and traumatizing industries in the world. That's really was integral for me to becoming who I am today, because a lot of it comes down to that mindset and, like I said, harmonizing your emotions. When you have those two aspects working together, it's an alchemized mind, and the world becomes your playground. That's really what it's all about, man. Life's too short or it's too long. Who cares? It's really about playing and enjoying the journey. And I fall victim to that too. Like I get too much in my masculine sometimes, trying to do too many things. But like I said, coming back to that yin, just being more like in that childlike state, having fun. Like recently when you and I were hanging out, just going and playing basketball, just going bike riding, just get back to having fun. And too many people are so like worried about the cost of living going up and all this crap. Like maybe the cost of living is going up, but what's the cost of you not living a fulfilling life? And that's really what this comes down to, is you living a fulfilled life. You know, like it all comes down to your energy. Remember, like I said, time backwards is emit. It's really about the energy you're putting out into this universe. And that energy you put out in the universe starts with yourself and how you're harmonizing your emotions to love yourself authentically. And when you love yourself authentically, you're going to attract more abundance into your life. Believe that. Believe that.
That's a fact.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. What was the easiest part about making your book?
Man, honestly, like I feel like I'm a pretty good writer. Like my dad said that my best gift is writing, which I don't fully agree with, but I've always just had a knack for words. I wasn't always the best with numbers, but like one of the only A's that I got in college was in speech class. And cool. I just look at like writing is just a form of getting things right. Like things are not right, and we want to get them right, so you write them out, and your ability to express yourself. So I've always been pretty good with words. And just being able to concisely put them together to create this masterpiece. I believe that I will write more books in the future. But yeah, the easier part was just really transmitting this information in such a way that people can just hear my voice, and hopefully they read it and they feel it in their heart, because that's really the essence of this teaching, so that I can help you to open your heart back up, because a lot of people, their hearts are closed. And so I had to do a lot of work to open my heart up. I'm still doing it. I have coaches that I work with like, oh, your heart's finally opening. I'm like, oh, it is finally. Beautiful stuff. Because that's really what this work is all about, is helping people to open their hearts up and really love themselves.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a great read. It's just one of those head nodders, like, yep. All killer, no filler. Here we go. Hell yeah.
That's what I've been hearing. I've been hearing that from a lot of people. I got a number of other coaches who've been reading it, and they're like, oh, man, like you just break it down so well. And you know, I really hope that it helps a lot of people on their healing path. That's the only, like, that's all what it's all about, man. Like that's the only reason I'm here, you know, is to support people on their healing journey. And I really appreciate the support that you're giving me and everybody else. Like I have my days where I'm like, what's going on? Is this working? And I just have my days where I doubt myself. And so your kind words and the people that chime in and support me, like I really appreciate that a lot, because the essence is getting back to building this community where we all love each other and we stop just staring at our phones and our bank accounts and stressing out, and start looking each other in the eyes and like really loving each other. Like, that's beautiful. Community and human connection. We're craving that more than ever these days.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we could use that more than ever these days, because in these uncertain times since the dawning of the Rona and inflation and whatever else is going on, man, it just seems like things are so polarized, and and we really do need to bring it back to that, eye contact, human level in so many ways, on so many levels, with so many people. And there's so many ways to go about it, but yeah, if people are still operating from the shadow, what's great about, and you mentioned this as a constant reminder throughout the book, giving a lot of great other, reminders, is that once you, get in touch and implement and integrate the shadow aspect, you can really use that as a radar and have your intuition awakened that much more as well, to see that within other people and seeing when other people are projecting their shadow. And what I'm trying to do at this point is I'm not going to be, shoving a mirror in people's face, right then and there on the spot, some random guy, meeting at a grocery store or whatever, but just knowing that it's there and, seeing that energy, feeling into it, possibly, if it's an appropriate time and place or whatever, to, maybe say something to the other person, in a compassionate approach,
Yeah, well, one thing I was going to mention is that breakdown precedes breakthrough. Oftentimes we need the breakdown to occur to have that breakthrough. And everything in the world that's going on in the world, I cannot stress this enough. Everything that's happening in the world, it's happening perfectly. Like, I used to really stress out, but I'm like, so many people, they're not facing their pain, and they're not going to see change happen until they face the pain. And that's most of where our society's at. And there's people in the world that really benefit from people suffering. So they're keeping that suffering going. And that's why I'm doing this work. Like, the grand scheme, am I doing this because I want to make $1 million? Like, sure, I want to make $1 million and build a dope ass retreat center. But the real essence of doing this is teaching people to become their own healers, so we can break the chains from this dying system, and from the ashes rise like the phoenix, and support people after that we go through this breakdown to have a breakthrough into the essence of human potential, which is the next stage of human evolution, which comes back to the nervous system and our emotions. And the night is darkest just before the dawn. And that's what this book is all about, the dawn of human potential. We're going through the darkest night of the soul. And as soon as people stop trying to look at like, oh, I'm going to go eat Doritos. Oh, I'm going to go watch TV. Oh, I'm going to go masturbate to porn. This will feel good. It doesn't feel good. You're faking feeling good. When you actually face your pain, you'll find things that actually invigorate your soul, and you'll love yourself in such ridiculous ways. It'll be amazing. But that's the breakdown. We have to go through this breakdown. We have to go through this dark night of the soul for humanity to evolve, grow, and thrive in unimaginable ways. So appreciate the journey. I have my days where I'm down on myself. I'm like, this is where we're supposed to be. I was born into this world perfectly at this time to support other light workers, healers, and coaches, guides, shamans, whatever you want to call yourself, so that they can step into their role to be the greatest version of themselves. And collectively, like Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other back home. We have to hold hands and really honor each other on this journey. And we have to shun the fear and step into love and really open up our hearts to create and manifest that.
Wow. If you want to end it there, it's been an hour and a half. I can't see a better way of ending it.
Let's do that.
Break it down, man. That's the spiritual alchemy for you.
Just
love it all.
Just a final shout out. If you want to learn more about the work that I do, check me out on YouTube, Odyssey Mentorship, my website, odysseymentorship.com. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. I am ODY1 Kenobi. I am OD1 Kenobi. My father worked on Star Wars, so I got the Star Wars vibe going. Also, check me out on Facebook. Like any support, let's build the tribe. Reach out. If anything I said resonated with you, feel free to reach out. I'll be more than willing to send you a free copy of my book. Or August 7th, my book comes out on Amazon, Shadow Awakening. If you want to help me out, buy a book. They're going to be $5 for the first couple of days. Buy the book, write a review, because that's going to help me to reach more people with the message. So I'm really grateful for the support, and hopefully you'll be able to take my wisdom and love yourself more and make your dreams come true. Thank you so much, Derek, for having me on today.
Damn, yeah. Honor, pleasure, and it was awesome. Thanks so much. And always learning stuff from you, brother.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for anybody who tuned into this. Goodbye.
Raise the frequency, happy to see me. Are you ready for a holistic view? Raise the frequency, happy to see me. Are you ready for a holistic view?